introduce the next speaker, Kiran Jethwa. So Kiran is the managing partner of Fumaze LLC and Fumaze Malaysia. Kiran is an active supporter of innovative business models that incorporate economic, social, and environmental triple bottom line strategies. Serial entrepreneur and a veteran marketing professional with over 20 plus years of experience in the high-tech and renewable energy industry. Kiran has also contributed as the investor chair for California and a mentor in Clean Tech Open, the largest clean technology competition in the USA and globally. His company, Fumaze, is an asset management and asset development company based out of USA and Malaysia, with a focus on renewable energy, water and waste sectors, and geographic focus on Southeast Asia and Indian subcontinent. So today, Kiran will cover the following topics: typical investor evaluation of projects, ESG integration, quadruple bottom line model. He will actually tell you the difference and between triple bottom line and quadruple, a strategy that they developed, a holistic approach to green energy projects, multiple uses of land, and challenges of developing green energy, green hydrogen projects. Thank you, Kiran. Go ahead, please. Great to have you here on the stage.
Thanks, Vlad. Thanks, Oksana, Vlad, Uliana, and the rest of the team for inviting me for this conference. I'll give you a brief background on what we are doing and some of the strategies that we are following. So let me see if I can share my screen. All right. So as Vlad mentioned, right, Fumaze is an asset development, asset management company, and we are focused on renewable energy, water, waste, and hydrogen sectors. At the end of the day, right, when we look at projects, so my presentation is going to be a little bit more geared toward developers, and then also look at it from an investor perspective as to what is the investor is looking for. So if you are a developer, you look at the country that you're in, present in, what kind of policies, what kind of regulations there are. If you are in a foreign country, then you obviously need a local partner in that particular country. For example, Fumaze is based out of Malaysia. And if you're developing a project in Philippines, we definitely need a partner in Philippines, right? Because we don't know the policies. And quite a few times, you need that connections to acquire the sites, suitable sites, right? Land is a starting point for any project. And suitability of that site is very, very, very important, right? Then, of course, the technology partners, the EPC partners, and if you are into biomass projects, then, of course, the feedstock supply is very important. When people talk about ready-to-build project, or when they say that the project is ready, right, what does it mean? From an investor perspective, the first and foremost is whether you have a signed offtake agreement with somebody, right? That's when the project is ready to build. Of course, the land is a second highest priority, because without land, nothing is possible. And then what we do is we look at the risks and then compare that with the levered IRR, the return on equity, and the DSCR, right? And if it makes sense, then it's a go. And then you need more due diligence. And that's where what I would tell basically developers is one of the biggest things that investors like is transparency. I do not like uncertainties, right? And so quite a few times what ends up happening, right? Developers feel that, okay, there is certain things that are not so good in the project. And so what ends up happening is they hide that in the beginning, thinking that it may discourage investors to come look at their project, right? But to me, that's a waste of time, both sides, for the developer as well as for the investor, because all those things, all those nitty-gritty details are going to come up no matter what, right? Whether it happens early or it happens after 6 months. If it happens after 6 months, we have wasted everybody's time and the project hasn't really moved forward, right? And so it's best to be very transparent. At the same time, yes, you do need to have a positive outlook and show the best side of things, but don't be afraid of showing the bad things as well. So I went through the list of projects that were put together on QPQ, and there were a couple of projects that I saw that I wanted to mention. I won't mention the actual projects, but the things that were there, right? One of the things that really surprised me is this one company saying that, yes, we have technology to solve the global problems, and we need bazillion dollars. Now that doesn't fly with any investor. You need to have proper definition of what your project is. You need to learn to walk before you can fly, right? And so narrow it down to a particular project and say, this is the project. And then here's a pipeline of projects, future projects, that's fine. But you need to have one project to get somebody interested in your project and your technology, right? I started off, as Vlad had mentioned, I was mentoring a lot of companies in the clean technology space, including nuclear fusion company as well. And one of the things I always tell people is show me the money. And when I say show me the money, it does not mean just show me money, right? It's more about show me your revenue models, show me your cost structure, right? And that shows how much you have thought through in the project development. Now, the presentation I have, the slide I have right now talks about typical project evaluation. What is happening now is basically what we call a quadruple bottom line, which is combining your economic bottom line with ESG. So this is the ESG integration into your project, right? So what we look at, not just the economic score, of course, economic score and the returns on the project is very important. That makes a project sustainable. And without profits, nothing is sustainable. And if you're not sustainable, then it's basically end of show for you, right? So sustainability in terms of profit is very important. And that's the driver, no doubt. But above that, we also look at the social score. What is the health impact? For example, if you are developing a thermal power plant, there's a huge health impact, right? And so it will score very negatively. On the flip side, it will actually create a lot of jobs. And so that's where politically, thermal coal-fired power plants do win sometimes. On the long run, obviously, it's not going to be a good project. And so we would never invest into a thermal power plant, a coal-fired power plant. Similarly, we look at the environment score as well, right? What are the kind of emissions you have? If it's a biomass project, are you capturing all the emissions? And what I like to always show or tell people is that I would follow European standards for emissions or Japanese standards, which are very strict. Why is that? Well, there's an ulterior motive. Today, maybe let's say we are developing a project in Southeast Asia or some other country, right? Where the emission standards are not very strict. The enforcement is not very strict. And so you may think that, okay, we don't have to invest into all that CapEx and we should be fine, which may be good today. But what happens if the government changes 2 years down the road and then they come up with stricter standards, right? Now you are in a pickle, you are in a very tight position. So why not do the right thing right from the very beginning? That's my philosophy. Okay, so emissions, we follow European standards, Japanese standards to make sure that it does not have any emissions, the bad emissions, right? We also look at the impact on the land, on the water, on the air, and whether this particular project is going to create a carbon sink or not. On the governance side, there are ESG principles that are out there. For example, how many board of directors for that SPV for the project has women on there? We look at those things. Why? Because that is ESG. That is what is happening today. And typically, when it comes to project finance, right? There is two parts of it: equity and debt. Debt comes from the lenders, the banks, right? The equity portion typically comes from private equity. And private equities are nothing but general partners who are managing funds for the limited partners. And so this ESG model is actually not something that just the general partners are dictating. It's also the limited partners. They are putting pressure on the general partners to make sure that the investments that they do follow ESG standards. And this is becoming more and more evident now, right? Today, COP26 just got over. Unfortunately, we didn't achieve the goals that we wanted to achieve. I would have wished that there was a more stricter, more measurable goals, but well, it's something is better than nothing, right? And the other thing we look at also is what is the management's commitment, because that shows how committed is the management towards ESG. Do they understand what are ESG principles? And are they monitoring and reporting those ESG scores? So those become very important. And I'll go into those details a little bit later. But this is a framework that we within Fumase have developed. We call it the quadruple bottom line. So at a very high level, what I like to do is take a very holistic approach, right? So over here in the middle is a green city. That green city could be an industrial park also, or it could be a remote village, a town, whatever it could be. And idea is any community, whether it's a green city, whether it's an industrial park, has some needs in terms of power, in terms of water, right? It has transportation, and then it processes all those inputs and produces waste. Waste in the form of municipal solid waste, waste in the form of wastewater. The green city, the industrial park, also has a lot of buildings. Why can't those buildings be green? And then now, in the last couple of years, hydrogen has been there for a long time, but in the last couple of years, hydrogen has taken center stage. And so we are looking into hydrogen as well. And so at the end of the day, Fumasa has a strategy to provide power, which is green, renewable power, and also hydrogen to the industrial park or the green city to help them decarbonize as quickly as possible. Now, what happens is when it comes to power, basically the scope 2, right, which is the power, is addressed to some extent. However, the scope 1 emissions for that particular industry are not addressed. And so that's where green hydrogen comes into play, or hydrogen. We are focused on the green hydrogen part only, not on the blue, but that's where hydrogen comes in, right? And today, you can blend in, if you are using, let's say, natural gas, you can blend in 5% of hydrogen, up to 20%, without requiring any change to your equipment. And that's what we are doing today. We are talking to companies, industries, where they take in hydrogen, maybe 5%, and we create a roadmap for them that basically slowly they increase the hydrogen content and reduce the natural gas content. And maybe in 10, 15 years, they are completely decarbonized. So right now, Fumase is developing one project, a 75 megawatt electrolyzer project in Australia, with basically to satisfy local demand first, and then look into export. Similarly, we are developing also a 160 megawatt green hydrogen project in Southeast Asia, again the same way. And then right now, for example, in Malaysia, right, there are no policies. And most of the countries in Southeast Asia similarly has no policies when it comes to green hydrogen or hydrogen, right? And so what we may end up doing is export first and then do the domestic demand. We'll see how things progress. There was a question in the last panel about EV versus hydrogen fuel cell. And so transport becomes very interesting as well, right? Whether it's a green city, whether it's an industrial park, has transport, mobility. And so how do we decarbonize that whole sector is very important. And Nicole gave a very good answer, right? It's very difficult, it depends. And I concur with her. Basically, at the end of the day, it depends upon your usage pattern. If you are a person driving from home to office and office to home, then maybe EV is a better solution for you, right? Because you can charge at home at night, overnight, and then you are ready again in the morning. Or maybe you charge once a week and you are set for the whole week. However, if you are, let's say, a municipal solid waste collection truck, that is a very heavy duty truck, then hydrogen is a better strategy for you. And the usage pattern also is that you need to fuel very quickly. For example, if that's your usage pattern, you need the same experience as going to a petrol station. You go in 5 minutes, you're out. If that's the kind of experience you require, then hydrogen is a better option for you. So it all depends. I mean, right now, my thinking is passenger vehicles will lean towards EV, and heavy duty trucks, buses, etc., would go towards hydrogen. So people who live in Southeast Asia, in particular Singapore, where I am right now, you will understand the context, the la. People in Singapore have a tendency to say la all the time. What's up, la? Stuff like that, right? And so that's the la connotation here, but it actually stands for livestock, aquaculture, and hydroponics. And so this is a strategy that I would like to advocate other developers to look into as well. This is not something that has been developed. There are people who are trying different things, maybe one, but not everything. Fumase is also trying out this strategy where we want to basically, under the solar panels, right? Typically, solar panels are 3 to 4 feet above ground. I'm talking about ground mount systems right now, right? So instead of that, what if we raise the whole structure to 10 feet? So now we have space under the solar panels to do something, make useful use of that land. Typical solar farms have a single use for land. Why can't we have multiple use? Because then we don't get into this issue about land for crops versus land for renewable power, right? And once you have that 10 feet height, we can have lamb, goat, chicken, bees, that is under the solar panels. We can have aquaculture and raise prawns, fish. We can have hydroponics to grow vegetables, right? I just saw a report today, somebody has developed saffron in a closed environment in a building. And so we would look into that to say maybe we can do saffron, which is a high prized item, grow under the solar panels, right? So now you're making multiple use of the same land. That's one thing. The raising of the structure definitely increases the capex. However, if you go back to my earlier slide about the triple bottom line and the ESG, what is happening, right, is we are developing a local economy. Because at the end of the day, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a fisherman. So what will end up happening is we will hire people from the local community to do all that, right? So to do the hydroponics, to do the aquaculture, or to raise lamb, goat, whatever it may be. The other thing also is food security. Because now what ends up happening is that local region essentially becomes self-sufficient in all the food items, right? And if you think about it in terms of incubator, like a high-tech incubator, right? That's what along the lines of my thinking as well, that what we will do is we'll create a framework where we create the whole supply chain logistics. We will go and partner up with the grocery stores or whatever. And then that becomes an avenue for people to sell their goods to. Nicole has covered quite a bit of this. One of the main things I would probably want to point out here in terms of the green hydrogen, what are the challenges? Nicole covered most of it over here. So I will stick to one rhetoric, and that is the $2 per kg. If I want to convey anything to the people, please stop using the $2 per kg rhetoric, because that's a 2030 target, not a 2023 or 2025 target, right? And so what we need to do is be able to create a demand for the hydrogen. And so we need a carrot and stick kind of an approach. And that goes into subsidies, incentives, and also carbon tax and policy support from the governments. We also need to start thinking about the hydrogen carriers as to how do you transport hydrogen. And there are a lot of different technologies being explored. And that is the challenges right now. At a very high level, these are how we evaluate projects. And we definitely look at the quadruple bottom line with a minimum 60% 4BL score. At the end, I do want to convey this, that the planet that we have is not inherited from our parents. Please remember that. It's borrowed from our children. So let's take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran. That's a great kind of finish, a great way to finish the presentation. This is definitely something to remember. Just a few questions, if I may. So is it possible for a project to have a good environmental impact, but not good social impact?
Absolutely. I think look at a solar project, for example, right? If I'm a developer of a solar project, I'm not talking about manufacturing solar panels. I'm talking about actually installing solar panels and generating power. Mm-hmm. Once the project, so I hire an EPC company that hires maybe 1,000 workers to do the construction work for me. Once the project is constructed, I hire a few people, yes, maintenance workers, maybe security staff, etc. But that number of employees I would have is maybe 50 to 100. It's not going to be in 1,000. And so my environmental impact is definitely very good, right? It's a solar project, so very good, no pollution. But my societal impact is very low. I have an indirect impact, yes, because of me, the EPC company now has business and they go and hire a lot of people, but my direct societal impact is low. And that's one of the reasons why we have come up with the solar law strategy, where we raise the structures and then do multiple use of the land. And so now we are creating a local economy within that community.
Understood. Okay, very good. And one more question. So in your opinion, is distributed power generation and rural electrification better than large renewable energy projects?
So there, I think my take is we have an existential threat right now. The 1.5 degree centigrade goal that we have, I think is most likely going to be missed. And so that's going to have large repercussions. So distributed generation, absolutely very good. But I mean, when I say distribute at that point, I'm talking more about rural electrification. And that is good. Absolutely. We need power each and every corner of the world, definitely. But if we have an existential threat, then my take is we should spend the money today to get large renewable power plants up and running for multiple reasons, not just for the power, but also for the green hydrogen part of it, because that's where we'll be able to decarbonize the world faster pace.
Definitely.
Another point to be raised is if we are doing distributed, right? And this is basically maybe 1 megawatt project, then another 1 megawatt project. It's not very scalable. It's good for the society, absolutely, but it's not a scalable model. We want to decarbonize the world at a very fast pace. We don't have time. We don't have planet B. This is the planet we have, and this is an existential threat. So from that perspective, I would say we need to go large as quickly as possible.
Exactly. So we have to make big steps rather than kind of focusing on smaller things. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Well, thank you very much, Kiran. Thank you very much for joining us today and for your contribution to this to the Green Energy Summit.